Loving Spoonful has been around for 10 years and is Kingston's healthy food agency. What we do kind of spans three areas: food access, food skills, and community engagement. In the food access area, the fresh food delivery program was actually the pillar we were founded on. Our first staff person ran the organization out of her car and drove around to grocery stores to pick up their surplus. And that's basically still what the program looks like today, except it's grown to be 138,000 pounds in the past year, delivered by more than 60 different volunteer drivers who are doing 30 to 50 routes a week. And each route looks like picking up from grocery stores, restaurants, and then farmers and gardeners in the summer as well through our market booths where we receive donations, and then delivering directly to social service agencies. So that's hot meal programs, shelters, addictions and mental health, subsidized housing, and 18 of those more than 40 agencies have our fresh food market stands in them. They're in the lobbies of agencies that see a high traffic from folks who might be experiencing hunger. We also have a gleaning component in the harvest season where folks go to farms to harvest what would otherwise go fallow in fields and have that delivered to the same agencies and fresh food market stands. And then the last piece of the food access programs is our, we have a new name for it, the Meetup, is the Meetup, which is a program to make local quality meat more affordable to local agencies. In food skills, and this isn't my specialty, but the two main components are community kitchens, which is teaching people in usually series of classes how to cook delicious, affordable, and healthy meals, and using that process to build community as well. The Grow Project school gardens are currently in 10 elementary schools, but expanding to 23 in the next couple of years. And that program teaches elementary school kids about growing food and community and farmers and food systems as well. And then the area of community engagement, as Madison mentioned, the Circles program is our new poverty reduction program that's trying to get more at the root of food insecurity, being that lack of income, and is using a food skills component to bring people together around meals, build community across class lines, and at the same time be supporting them toward goals for self-sufficiency. One of the things that we believe pretty strongly is that everybody deserves good food. So we focus on fresh and healthy food, and what that looks like in our fresh food delivery program is trying to increase the amount available today for people to eat. Though, because we know that the root of food insecurity at the household level, the reason that people don't know where their next meal is coming from, is not a lack of food, it's a lack of income. And so we have other programs that are working across the spectrum to try and, of sort of areas of creating change, leverage points for change, to do poverty reduction work. Yeah, so since the root of food insecurity at the household level is a lack of income, not a lack of food, our poverty reduction program is one that we're really excited about for being able to create change at a more systemic and long-term level, whereas the fresh food delivery is really trying to create more access to healthy food today, but it's not serving any long-term, solving any long-term issues of poverty or household food insecurity.
Can you speak about the issue of conflating the two that you were speaking about earlier?
Yeah.
And how people tend to do that?
I think it's tempting because it seems so tidy to say, well, there's surplus waste, or there's surplus food from grocery stores, and there are people who lack food. So it's really tempting to see those as perfect puzzle pieces that by reducing one, you reduce the other, and the problem is dealt with. But if you look a little deeper at the actual causes of the reason that people are experiencing hunger, it's not because grocery stores are throwing out their food. it's because they can't afford it. And so having a solution that gives them fresh food for free is very helpful today, but it's not addressing the root of that issue, which is that they are living in poverty. There's a risk that decision makers might be let off the hook for doing something to truly address poverty, because they're instead doing something easier to address food waste.
It's a temporary short-term solution.
Yeah. And not that it shouldn't be done. It should, definitely. But it shouldn't be done under the guise of solving poverty. It should be done under the guise of responsible adult behavior that reduces environmental waste and does something better with food that has had a lot of resources put into it. You know, it shouldn't end up in the landfill, definitely. Because we're coming at this from the perspective of there happens to be a surplus of fresh, healthy food in our community from grocery stores and restaurants and farmers because of the cost of doing business. It's unavoidable. There are ways to reduce it, definitely, but at the moment there's a lot that is either going into the dumpster or to pig farmers. And we're coming at it from trying to increase access to healthy food today for people experiencing hunger, and therefore trying to take advantage of that surplus. Yeah, I think one of the amazing things about our fresh food market stands is in an attempt to make fresh food access easier and more direct, the food gets put there for anybody to take. And what we've heard is there was one woman who said that she has a friend who would never go to a meal program or a food bank because of there's so much stigma associated with it and a lot of shame, but was totally happy to come to the market stand, and she was like teaching him what zucchini was, and it was his only source of produce. And we've heard from a lot of different people actually, and Madison did her master's on the topic at Queen's, that the lack of produce that we thought we were trying to kind of augment for people experiencing hunger, we were actually creating a source that didn't exist. Yeah, which I think speaks, I mean, it's really affirming to know that the program's effective, that it's well received, that it's meaningful to people, but it's also a pretty big reality check about the extent of the problem, if that's really their only source of produce.
So my name is Pat Jocelyn. I'm just recently accepted the position here as Food Rescue Coordinator, and that's for foodrescue.ca.
So do you want to speak a bit about what foodrescue.ca?
So yeah, foodrescue.ca it's the first of its kind. It's an online platform, so it is it runs on, it's a website, not an app, so it can run on any device, computer, mobile, tablet. And once you become a member, and so members can consist of food businesses as well as social service agencies, then you are put up on this platform, and donors, food businesses, can put extra surplus food up on the platform, and local agencies would be able to accept it, be notified and accept this food. With a lot of food businesses now, food waste is something that's addressed quite seriously. So like zero waste, zero impact, especially at restaurants, hotels, you know, they're mandated to limit waste because, you know, it's not great for the environment, but also, you know, it's expensive to deal with waste. So we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from them, as well a lot of you know, people in the community, local restaurateurs want to support their community, and a lot of them do in other ways as well. But, you know, being able to reduce food waste and having that food go to feed hungry members of their community is also, you know, they love doing it. The only people that can become members of foodrescue.ca are, you know, are food businesses and registered not-for-profit charitable organizations. That way we're ensuring that to the donors who are putting this food up, that it's going to go to an agency that is going to respect it, right? And all of the agencies on this platform will be needed to be health inspected, so that on both ends the food is treated fairly and respectfully, that, you know, no one's going to get sick or hurt in the process, right? Because the whole idea is that, you know, they're hungry people, but they should be treated just like everyone else, right? With safe, healthy food.
And how have you noticed it starting to take off?
So it has just started. This is the first of its kind. The website launched on Wednesday, 2 days ago, and it is to go live the end of March. So right now we are currently just registering people to get on the platform, and we should be exchanging food by the end of March. So it's quite exciting. It's brand new. So it's not replacing anything that Loving Spoonful currently does. Their programs are doing wonderful things. What foodrescue.ca is going to allow is for these smaller donations that aren't always logistically easy to pick up, small amounts of soup or bread that once before wouldn't be picked up can now be exchanged directly. The other thing that's interesting about foodrescue.ca as opposed to a lot of food reclamation, food rescue programs is that it's a direct connection between the agency and the donor. So there is no one in between. Like right now, Loving Spoonful kind of acts as the middleman. They collect all this food and then are able to distribute it through our streams, which is fantastic. Foodrescue.ca is putting the responsibility on the agency to go and collect the food directly from the donor, which is great because you're going to start to see these connections that didn't exist before between local food businesses and local agencies.
These are some of our community gardens. We did a trolley tour of all the community gardens last year and took everyone around to different ones to kind of see them. We have 38. There's quite a few. We're always trying to look at how to make things better, so building it so we can kind of increase access, not just for folks who actually, might have time and money to garden, but we're trying to make it actually accessible to everyone.
I'm Madison Hainstock, and I'm going to be the community programs manager for Loving Spoonful while Lilith Wyatt's on leave, and I'm very excited about that. It's going to be fun. I finished my master's 2017, so very recently, at Queen's, and I spoke to people experiencing homelessness about their transition into housing around food, so how they went from shelters and hot meal programs and that geography kind of survival, and then going to having your own kitchen and how that experience was. Yeah, it was a fascinating project, and actually that's how I used to volunteer a lot with Loving Spoonful, and but what came up a lot in my project, which kind of really got me really interested in working with everyone here, was that basically everyone I spoke to talked about those fresh food market stands, about being that one of the only places that they could actually access fresh produce, again, in a way that was not at all undignified. People could just walk in, and they actually went to a lot of places that they wouldn't have otherwise, just to go get produce. Loving Spoonful specifically only picks up food that matches our healthy, safe food donation guidelines. So primarily, we don't want to just increase access to any kind of food. We know that there's a lot of food out there that is affordable but not good or healthy. So what we're trying to do through this program is increase access to what people actually normally can't access. What folks mentioned with these fresh food market stands is that you don't, like Lil said, you don't have to prove your need. Like, you don't have to tell people your income. You don't have to sign up on a piece of paper. You don't have to tell anyone your name. And we've located them in places that people are already going because they might be accessing those services, or they might be just walking by. Like, they don't have to say that they're in need, but they're just there, and you can just walk up. I've taken food home off of fresh food market stands when I was volunteering, just because it's good food, and it's just so sad that we throw it out because it's not inedible, it's not bad, it's just that there's a weird thing in our food system that somehow this stuff is just not deemed as enough. I think a lot of folks really appreciate the fresh food market stands because they don't have to do anything other than just pick it up and go. And that for us is, in terms of increasing access to healthy food, like, it's a milestone. So for agencies, it actually brings people in their doors, big people that wouldn't otherwise. And again, it's because they don't have to ask any questions. You don't have to say anything. It's and people get really excited and really happy and they're empty within an hour of us dropping off food. And so we know the need is there, and also everyone deserves good and healthy food, no matter what. The cost of healthy food, the cost of a watermelon, the cost of apples, those are all just higher than the cost of a box of cookies. Or Mara has this great thing now, 1 red pepper is the same price as 3 boxes of macaroni. If you're hungry, you're not gonna buy a red pepper, you're gonna get 3 boxes of macaroni. And we don't judge people for that. If they have to feed their kids and that's what they can afford, then buy it and feed your kids. But if we can help you get a fresh pepper in there too, then, and it's just going to get thrown out otherwise, then yeah, we're going to definitely step in there and make sure that happens. And then we still get calls about getting more market stands in new places. We started moving into transitional housing recently, which has been really cool. But the thing is, we can't really increase how many more market stands we have. 18's already quite a few, but we can't do that until we start getting more donated. So once we get more donations from our local grocery stores, then we can start putting them in more places. So we're really excited about that expansion, actually, for that reason.
So I'm Alexandra Harper. I'm the food access animator at Loving Spoonful. So it's my job. I coordinate the volunteers to go pick up food at different donors and drop them off at different recipient agencies, and just organizing all that kind of stuff and answering calls. When we had a call this week where a man, a gardener, he has a plot at one of the community gardens. He's like, I have 800 pounds of processed frozen tomatoes. Like, I'd like to donate them to be distributed, and, you know, organizing that kind of stuff, which is, they're always fun phone calls to get. So yeah, that's what I do.
How many volunteers do you have working?
There's probably around 100 registered. There's like definitely a core group of, you know, 20 or so that do routes once or twice a week, and two, I know, like, I've got a handful of volunteers who I know I can call and text kind of last minute, and they'll be like, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there, and that's amazing. And
and how many agencies do you have registered? Do you know the vague number?
Between like 50 and 56, I think. We have 18 fresh food market stands. So those are market stands that we've built, and they're just like wooden structures, and our volunteers pick up food and they bring them to them, and they just put them out, and they're free for anyone who walks by to access, and there's no, you know, having to prove your poverty or prove your hunger. It's kind of breaking down the barriers to people accessing food. It's probably at least like 15 to 20 different donors. We have ones that donate every day of the week, which is amazing. We have ones that, you know, donate once or twice a week, and then there's ones that are on our list that will just call us when they have, you know, extra soup or extra whatever from an event they did, and
so it can be spontaneous.
Yeah. A lot of what I do is figuring out those spontaneous phone calls, which is really fun. How the volunteers do it is you weigh yourself, and then you like pick up the bag, and then like do the math and do the difference. So this one's 10 pounds. Great. So we got, we could look. So we got a bunch of bagels in this one, which is great. They look beautiful, and yeah, so they're just day old, so they're perfectly fine. Like, you know, they just aren't at the top quality for what they need to sell every day. So obviously, like, I would eat them, and that's the whole idea with Loving Spoonful, is we only pick up food that we ourselves would eat or feed our families. So obviously I would eat these. They're only a day old, and this one was 20 pounds, so that's great. We just picked up a donation of 75 pounds of bread products, and we're about to start to deliver them and distribute them to different agencies across Kingston. So this is a regular route that happens every Saturday at this time. So we've created routes based on who's open and at what time. So there are different routes every day. So I think on Saturday there's 4 routes. So, you know, there's 4 volunteers out in their cars picking up from different grocery stores and restaurants and distributing the food all across Kingston, which is great. And so there's a mix of fresh produce and bread products like this, and
What are the kind of places that you distribute to?
So a lot of social service agencies, and like some halfway houses, some houses that host people with like mental illness homelesses who are in the process of, you know, kind of getting their life back on track. A lot of youth shelters, like the big shelters like the Gathering Place and Martha's Table, who just provide hot meal programs. Some church groups that provide a daily hot meal program. Like elementary school and high school, you know, you do food drives for the food bank, and they're, you know, they'd have incentives for you to like bring in more food and like competition between classes. And you know, I remember myself and a lot of other people just bringing in like so many packages of Mr. Noodles, and it's like those provide no nutritional value. There's nothing good in them. It's just empty calories. So it's like, why are we, we're here. It's about that, like, you know, people deserve food that is healthy and good for them and meets their nutritional requirements and actually keeps them full and is culturally appropriate, not just Mr. Noodles. Like, I feel like that's such a thing that the food bank might face as an issue, like just receiving kind of empty calorie foods like that rather than good, nutritious, healthy food. It's definitely a problem that I think North America is definitely facing, whereas, like, you know, we believe our food at the grocery store is supposed to look perfect, and like, hello, this looks perfect, but they can't sell it for whatever reason, because maybe it's a little bit brown here, but I would eat that in my home and I would feed it to my kids if I had them. And it's definitely a matter of like changing the shift of how we view food and what is good food. And yeah, just because it's not the perfect shape and size, it's still a perfect tomato kind of thing. Like, these are, you know, very squishy. I wouldn't want to eat these, and I don't think anyone else should. Like, we're not just getting rid of food just to get rid of it. We're giving agencies dignified food that I would eat myself, and it's all about dignity, and I love that word. And I think that you can give someone so much dignity by giving them good food, and that's super, super important. So yeah, we'll leave these ones behind, but I think everything else looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay. That's 20 pounds, isn't it? So that was 20, 40, that's 60, and then 17. So is that 70? We can say 80. We'll round it up. Yeah, it definitely gets busier in the summer because we have the grower project. So we encourage local farmers, and we have a few farmers that donate to us regularly to grow an extra row of produce and donate it to us, and we distribute it. So it picks up a lot in the summer and the fall, obviously, when all that stuff is getting harvested. We also do the gleaning. So we go into farmers' fields who, you know, they don't have time or whatever to pick the rest of, you know, the apples or the squash or the whatever, and we go in with a team of volunteers and pick it all and distribute it. And, you know, like, that's when we end up with the, you know, 1,500 pounds of squash, and everybody gets squash for like 2 weeks. We have donors that we pick up from 5 days a week, and it's like over 150 pounds every time. It's like pretty outrageous to see and to think that, oh, well, like, what was happening just before? Like, oh, it's probably just getting thrown in the dumpster out back. And so yeah, the Loving Spoonful is actually 10 this year, and it started with just one woman just driving around in her car, going to grocery stores and asking them for their extra food, and that's really how the whole thing started. And now we have all these like great different programs, and like we have this program that is still happening 10 years later, but it's just a bit more organized, and it's huge, which is really awesome. And yeah, it's like kind of an honor to be running the program that really started it all.